A lifetime of searching for love through toxic relationships, childhood prayers, and painful lessons eventually turned into a powerful story meant to help others heal. It's author Ashley Hibbler here, who's here to talk about how she transformed her personal journey into the book Soul Family 6, The Chosen Series. It explores revenge, purpose, and self-discovery. And we're here to talk about some of these themes: the soul family, the revenge, leaving toxic relationships, and how Ashley has turned the bad into the good, how she's channeled some of the drama that we all face in life into some interesting stories that can make you feel good and that you'll be very interested to read. So, Miss Ashley Hibbler, how are you today?
I am doing well. How are you today?
I'm wonderful now that I'm speaking to you. So what do you think I left out of that introduction? What are you all about?
Well, you actually summed it up, but I could go into it a little bit more because, like you said, all of these things have happened in my life, like with the revenge, the people competing, and a lot of the things happened in the story like that. But a lot of the competition was kind of like people competing with the other person wasn't competing. And I
Mm.
kind of went through that myself, because people knew that I was very intelligent. And I can tell that they were insecure about that because they challenged me a lot on jobs. But I guess in a way, I guess to talk about it, I mentioned it in my book like that. And I didn't even realize it at the time, but I did. And then you have, what else? Because it's so many things, it's so many layers to the book because it's so many series in the book. So trying to cover it all, I'm just thinking about the first series because it's 4 series, like I said, but the last one has the revenge story, and it's probably the one with the most, um, I say, the most action in it. And I
Okay.
know, like you mentioned on my book to video channel, you can actually see those events play out visually on there.
Yeah, and that's you have a cool YouTube channel here. So if we search Soul Family 6, The Chosen Series, there are these songs that you created. And so like what was that all about? You created the music first and then the book flowed after that?
You know, the words to the songs were always there. I just didn't have the music to go with it, but they were inspired by the book. And then I said, well, I love music anyway. I'm a singer, so I love to, put everything together. Kind of like when you go to the movies, you see the music that goes with the movie. So that's what I
Oh yeah.
did when I did book to video for Soul Family
Nice.
6.
Yeah, the music enhances it, and it's like if you watch the same exact scene without the music, it might just seem off or it might seem silly. And so you
Yeah.
mentioned that there are these 4 series in the book, and are they like completely self-contained, or like are the same characters, or like what's the
It's the same
relation? Like why
character.
are they all in one?
Well, they are the same characters, but when they reach the second series, when they become human, their names are changed. And
Okay.
they have kids, and their kids have kids. So by the time you get to the third series, they have grandchildren. So it's like generations. And it's crazy that I did it like that because I think back to my childhood. I used to play in my closet by myself and create all these characters, just like I'm talking about in this book, with a family full of people. And here I am writing and ended up writing a book the same way.
Yeah, that's very cool that you can create something, and that's very universal, right? We've all dealt with like sketching something or drawing something or just like creating something out of nothing and having that enjoyment with our imagination. And so you mentioned that there's some of these like the revenge themes or the toxic relationships, but like what's the setup for like these characters and these stories? What's the plot?
So initially, Lucifer and Lily were top of the class, and they thought nobody could ever compete with them or beat them in anything. And Ariel and Jermaine and Archangel Michael defeat them after they caused the war in the sacred land of hearts. And they ended up having to serve their term as guardians of the underworld, and they wanted revenge for that because they already was embarrassed that they got beat because they never gotten beaten. They always were on top. So when they found out that they were in human form, then they started, attacking them and their family without them really knowing, because they were in human form and part of their life in the sacred land of heart, part of those memories were gone. So that's where the revenge came from. And each time they kept getting beat. And it was because their powers were growing. And well, not their powers, but Ariel and Jermaine's power, all of the people that lived in the land of terror, their powers were growing. And so they couldn't defeat them. And they tried and they tried, but they couldn't. And that's why at the end of series 4, it's more like a cliffhanger, because they still didn't defeat them. But I do have a part 2. I have a part 2 coming out, and it's a big plot twist. Just nothing like the first one.
Exciting. Well, no one wants to be a one-hit wonder, right? You want to be like a James Patterson, and you want to put out, have people always wanting more. And my understanding also is that there's this idea of like becoming human with these people, correct?
Yeah, they did become human. So Ariel became Lady Ashley. Jermaine kept his name. He just took the E. Well, he added the E, so it still was pronounced the same, but it was spelled different. And then you had Gabriel that went to Gary, Angela that went to, what was it, Kayla. So each one, all of those names that's in human form, those are the people in my life, and those characters are resembled to those. I mean, they are resembled to those as angels.
And as far as them being human, do they struggle with like the loving relationships and conflict and family, or like, what do they learn? How do they grow?
So they struggle because now they struggle with revenge, because they still don't have that in them. They only want to protect, and they doing everything in their power to protect their family. And sometimes that meant going to battle, which was something they really didn't want to do, but they had to teach their family to fight. And so that's the thing is, the revenge only came from Lucifer and Lily. Everybody else didn't have those intentions. They were just trying to protect.
And I think we mentioned a little bit about how you kind of turned your own life into, like, you expressed it in these creative ways. And so, we mentioned revenge, especially lately. I mean, what's been happening in your life? Have you struggled with revenge, or what kind of stress or conflict do you feel like talking about?
Well, I have, like I mentioned earlier, I struggle more with people competing. And these are people that were supposed to be my friends, or people that I talk to every day. And they were probably more like frenemies instead of friends, because behind my back, they had something different to say versus what they did in front of me. And so that's one of the reasons why I wrote kind of the way that I did, because I wrote some of my experiences in it.
And I can imagine how frustrating that way that can be. And everyone does it, right? Men and women. But from what I know, women can be so backstabby, right? So catty. And so, like, what did you learn from that? Because sometimes you think, well, if someone is like that, like, you should just like get rid of them and find new friends. But it's sometimes easier said than done. So, like, what if you could go back in time to those past relationships, the competing? Like, would you do anything differently, or would you have any advice for someone in that situation?
Or what I did was I ignored it, because I wasn't going to entertain it. I felt like if I entertained it, that's what they wanted me to do. I just did what my job required me to do. And I think after so long, they got tired of trying to do catty things behind my back, and they just started trying to be more of a friend, because they realized that I do stuff bigger than that. I don't get down. I just don't waste time on other people. I'm trying to create a life and a better life for myself. So I wasn't going to waste my time on things that I couldn't change. Only thing I was going to change was myself. And I've never been one of those people to give into, I guess to what people want to see. They want to see you react. And I never overreacted or reacted to a lot of it because what they call it, I was more stoic. So it really didn't affect me. I didn't lose any sleep over it. So, and I guess maybe they did, I don't know, but either way, I was okay.
Yeah, if they lost their sleep over what they were trying to do to you, that's their problem. So you had this enlightened approach, and you say, hey, time is short, life is limited on this planet, and I only have time to be positive and work on myself and help other people. And so what does that look like? I mean, like, what has been the upside for you? Like, are there any like positive relationships you feel like talking about?
Well, any relationship that I have with people are positive because I attract positive things and positive people that aren't pretty much aligned to me. That even if they come towards me, they won't be there long. But for the most part, I have a very small circle of friends. So I only allow, I guess, those that I know are really genuine to be around me.
Yeah, you have quality, not quantity. And you also mentioned about how you have a super imagination, right? You'd sit in the closet as a little girl and imagine the characters and what they would do. And so you've been kind of like thinking about this all your life. And was there a moment, or did something encourage you to begin making the songs and doing the writing?
Yeah, I when I initially started writing my first book, I asked Spirit, I said, can you please help me remember what was happening? Because I had recordings of everything that was happening during my spiritual journey, and I lost it all. And I needed to remember a lot of the things that I forgot. And I was reminded that I was always creative. And when I was creative as a kid, I would spend hours in the closet playing, to the point where my parents had to make me come out because they felt like I needed to get some air. And that's how imaginative I was. And so, and I would get so mad because I'm like, I'm in the middle of something, I didn't want to stop. But, and I feel like I'm like that now. So I probably was always like that, but I didn't realize it until I wrote my first book that I was even going to write, because I didn't even think about writing, even though I was very creative. And then once I started with the first book, I said, I want to talk more about my life, but I don't want to go into too much details about it. So I wanted to kind of tell it in a fictional way, and that's what I did.
Yeah. And that's, I think a lot of authors do that, right? If you just were very literal and exact about your own experiences, that's more of a biography. And if you say, well, I'm not a celebrity, who wants to know about the time that me and Suli kicked the can over by the grocery store? But you say, hey, we went on a fantastical adventure with magic and spells and battles. Like, hey, that's larger than life. That's interesting. And so when you were writing the books, did you have like a method? Because there's things like, say, Stephen King writes like 2,000 words a day, and that way there's like some consistency. So like, what do you do to get motivated? And like, do you have a writing process?
Sometimes I listen to music to get inspired. And then sometimes I just watch a little TV, because sometimes it gives me creative thought to either write about something or create it on my book to videos channel.
Very nice. Yeah,
but I don't know. I was going to say, like I kind of... Go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
You get a tiny little seed of an idea and you grow it into something, right? It's like planting in the garden and you grow a flower.
Yeah. Even when I was growing up, I watched a lot of TV, and I can't help but think that maybe I was a screenwriter or something in the past life, because the way I watched it, I didn't watch TV like most people watch TV. I was listening to everything in the background, looking at the lighting, things that most people don't look at when they're watching a movie or a show.
Oh yeah.
So
I like to do that too sometimes. You look at the wall, the ceiling, or the clothes. You kind of see the extra details, not necessarily what's right there in front of you. And speaking to that, I know that it's very common with authors to kind of they start writing and then they go through somewhat of a transformation as the process of getting it all out, and they end up on the other side like a changed person. So did something similar like that happen with you? Like, did you have any like growth or realizations as a result of writing this book?
Yeah, when I wrote my first book, to me, my first book was like a biography, so I kind of did it backwards, but it did lead me to writing Soul Family 6. But my dad passed, and even before he passed, I was going through what they call well, I call it my mirrored soul, because he is exactly like me, and we just stopped talking during that time. We just stopped talking. It wasn't, we didn't have a fight, we didn't argue, we just stopped talking, and we didn't talk for 2 years. And during that time, I was getting a lot of telepathic messages from him when, anytime I went to sleep. And the more I had these dreams, I knew exactly what was happening in his life, and I knew that there was something changing in my life, because that in itself changed me, because I had never had an experience like that where somebody could tell me everything about them and that was happening with them. It's like we talked more in my dreams than we did in person.
Mhm.
And then we finally came back together, and I knew the day that he came back, he was coming back. I said, "Oh, he's gonna reach out today," and it was 2 years later, and it was that day by email, and we've
Oh,
been together ever since.
very cool. So you've lived a life and you've had these experiences and you've written them down, and they say things like, well, you should, write in a diary, a journal, or process things. But here you are kind of writing it in fiction, which can be more enjoyable for you and for us, because then
Yeah,
we can be part of your fantastic larger than life adventures. And so
yeah.
we've kind of jumped around all sorts of topics, but I want to make sure in these final few minutes here that we talk about what's important to you. So do you think there might be a missing question in our conversation that I should be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
Well, I think you actually asked me, because when you asked me, did something happen in my life? It did, you know. And I feel like those are the things that make people grow when they have something happen in their life, even though we wish they didn't happen. It helps us to grow. It helped change me a lot. The way that I look at life now is totally different than it was before. You know,
Hmm.
it's just, I don't know. I just feel like that when I went through my spiritual journey after my dad passed, even on my job, I left my job, and my supervisor at the time said, "You must be going through a spiritual journey." And I said, I guess it was noticeable. And I said, "Yeah." I knew I had to make a change. I knew I didn't want to work the way that I was working all the time. I wanted free time to do the things that I love to do. So now that's what I do. I do things that I love to do. I don't just go to work, go home, sleep. Now I do things that I love to do in spite, while doing it. So I try to do things that I love to make money now.
Very nice. We can all learn from that, right? Like, what's the point
Yeah.
of going in and clocking into a job you hate and making money to impress people you don't even like? There's many more options than you think you have. And so you mentioned just a lot of wise advice here, like turning any bad situation into a good. And then you also mentioned something when we were talking about the toxic relationships, about how, like, if you can't control it, why are you worrying about it? Why are you playing that game? And so
Yeah.
I can get an idea of some of these nuggets of wisdom that are contained in this book, Soul Family 6, which is part of the Chosen series. And we can find that on Amazon by searching Ashley Hibbler. That's
Yes.
Hibbler. And you mentioned that you had the like the first book, and then you have the upcoming book. So can you tell us about those?
Well, the first one is called My Mirrored Soul and Personal Spiritual Journey. So it talks about the relationship that I had and have, and what I went through during the time we were separated. And the new book, I haven't came up with the title yet, but it's going to have 3 series to it, just like Soul Family 6, but Soul Family 6 has 4. But it's in layers too. And the only thing I can tell you is that that everything that you thought you knew about the book is totally different in part 2.
Ooh, nice. We can't wait. Well, we're looking forward to you coming out with that book, so that way you can continue to live this life that you enjoy, where you say, well, hey, I'm an author and I'll express myself and I'll tell some great stories, these exploration of love, childhood prayers, toxic relationships, and you take readers on a journey through life, sharing relatable experiences from childhood to adulthood, and you discovered your life's purpose in the process of writing. So this is Ashley Hibbler. You can find her on Amazon and check out this new book she has, Soul Family 6, the Chosen series, as well as the one that she has upcoming soon. And before I let you go, Miss Ashley, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to stump you. I try to put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you in life. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
Well, I could tell you what I've learned when I was dealing with my publishing company. I had no idea that it took as much communication as it did to get things done. And I had a project manager that was kind of sickly, and he wasn't communicating with me all the time. So I didn't get a lot of information. And even now, I'm still working on my audiobook because I haven't heard from him. So the best thing I can tell you to do in situations like that, because that's why I started my book to video channel, because I wasn't able, I just felt like I couldn't trust, people to do the job that I wanted them to do. And so I started leaning more on myself to do them. But it's not, I'm not telling anybody, though, not to trust people. But, just go in it with an open mind, knowing that things can happen. Even though you wouldn't think anything like that would happen, I wouldn't have never thought that I wouldn't have somebody working on my project for a long period of time because they were sick and they didn't have anybody else to work on it. But those things happen. And, I just want people to know that even though those things do happen, you can change the narrative. It doesn't have to stay like that. You don't have to feel discouraged. Try something else. There's other options out there. And that's exactly what I did. I started trying other things to take my mind off of even being discouraged with my audiobook, because the audiobook still is not out yet. But I have a way that I can put it out on my book to video channel. So I work through it.
Yeah, that's nice. You always have options, and even that word discouraged, right? Well, we
Yeah.
want courage. We don't want to discourage. So it's a
Yeah.
time to be courageous. And when you're an adult, sometimes you do have to do things you don't want to do. You have to check in. You have to follow up. Sometimes you have to do someone else's job for you. Sometimes,
Yeah.
but not all the time. And it's just
Yeah.
part of the hassle of life. And you could choose to live in victimhood, or you could say, hey, this is just one of those obstacles, roadblocks. Maybe it's the universe's way of seeing if I really want the
Yeah.
audiobook or really want the book. How badly do I want it? What will I do to get it? And so you're just
Yeah.
filled with wisdom today, Miss Ashley. And we should check you out at Ashley Hibbler on Amazon, Soul Family 6, the Chosen series, and also search Ashley Hibbler on YouTube, so that way you can check out those songs that she created. And that's a nice little companion to the book. So Soul Family 6, the Chosen series by Ashley Hibbler. And it's been such a blast speaking with you, Ashley. Thanks for showing up,
Same here,
stopping by.
Robert. Thank you. Thank you for having me.